Hi, I'm George Pearson, and in this Photoshop background change video, we will be taking this picture here and changing the background over to this nice sunset shot. Now, if you enjoy this video, make sure that you subscribe to my channel and also click the like button on this video as well. And if you want to learn more about Photoshop, take a look at the links in my description where you can find my complete training for Photoshop on Amazon. Okay, let's get to it. To change the background from one background to a different background as we have in here, it's the same basic technique for almost any picture. What you need to do is you need to separate out your foreground subject and then place that foreground subject onto your new background. Now there are some little details in here we have to also address. For instance, notice that the color tones here are cool tones to match the cool background. We had to shift these over to warm tones for this background. I've added in a highlight just around the edge in here to coincide with that sun in the background. And I've also changed the fur hood. There's kind of a white fleece thing in here and fur down here. I've changed that hood to be completely fur up here. So there's a few little changes to really sell this picture. All right, let's go ahead and see how this whole thing is done. I'm just going to close this file out. We don't need that one any longer. And we'll start off with a brand new file in here. And we'll start with the default Photoshop size. And it's right there. There it is. Now this is the new document window. I'm working right now in Photoshop CC 2017. If you don't have this new window, just go for the default Photoshop size. That's what we're using. It's 7 wide by 5 tall by 300. It's a landscape format. Choose Create, and there we go. Okay, now let's bring our first picture in. That's the background picture. Now I have these inside of a folder already and bring them in as place embedded. That means that the picture is embedded into the file and there's nothing else to worry about at that point. If you do place linked, then the Photoshop file still links back to the original image. Now this is useful if you want to be able to edit that original image. It will then automatically update your Photoshop file. We don't need that, so we'll just be using place embedded. There it is. There's the background. Now I have links for these on the materials support page, and the link for that is in the description. Go ahead and place this one in. There we go. Now it's a little bit different file format. As you can see here, it's a little wider, not quite as tall. So I'm just going to take the corners here and let's just drag this up just a little larger here, and I'll drag this down a little larger down below just so it fits better. Nothing really critical about that. And then click on the check mark. So there's the first part. Let's now bring in the picture of our girl. So that's File. Again, place embedded right down here. There she is. Bring this one in. And there's her picture. And I'm going to bring this down right about over to here. Just a little bit of space in behind at the back. Now I want to make it so that the sun is just to the left here of the middle of this band on her hat. So I'm going to bring her transparency down so you can see that. Okay, I think I'll bring her hat up just a little bit. So right here the horizon is at that middle point. I want to have the sun at that middle point. So I'll hold the Shift key down, click on this corner, and drag that corner up until the sun is just about at the midpoint of her head. It's just kind of a nice spot to have the sun. Nice alignment in there. Okay, that's good. Click on the check mark again and let's bring the opacity back up to 100 once more. Pretty much it. Let's just move her back just a little bit, and those little purple lines, those are the dynamic guides that are showing me that this is now lined up with the bottom exactly. And that's just about right. Let's just click on and off. Looks good. Okay, now we need to make our selection and then a layer mask around this. I'm just going to zoom in just a bit here, see if we can fit this whole thing in. Yeah, there we go. Whole thing fits on the page all at one time. Now I'll just make this a quick selection around here, and then we will use the Refine Edge tool to refine that. I think I'm going to leave this bit of hair off. It just kind of looks kind of strange out there, so I'll leave that off. Cleans up the picture a little bit. Also notice again the fur back here. There's kind of like a little rim of fur here, but I actually want to have fur over that white spot. We'll take care of that a little bit later. So let's start off here with the lasso tool, just the standard lasso tool. and set this at a new selection. Have my feathering set at 0, which is fine because we'll be doing a refined edge on this. And then just come along and do a quick little selection just outside of the girl's figure. And then straight across the bottom. And same thing back up and around the back side here. And just follow around, clear up to the top. And there's our basic selection. Okay, now we can clean that up. Go up to Select, come down to Select and Mask right here. This is what used to be called Refine Edge. So if you don't have Select and Mask on your version of Photoshop, just use the Refine Edge. Same thing, it's just a different name. The tool looks a little bit different, but it works exactly the same way. Now I have the overlay view here. It shows you red for what's being masked out. That's when I happen to like to use that the most, so I'll leave that as is. Opacity 50%. This refers to that red mask opacity. Now on edge detection, you can increase the radius if you need to. I'll leave everything here at their defaults right now, which is smooth 0, feather 0, contrast 0, shift 0. Everything exactly the same. This is all the default settings. Output settings, we're going to be outputting to a selection down here. We have layer mask, new layer with layer mask, new document. Lots of options down here. Right now it's set for selection. We'll probably go for the layer mask actually when we finish this whole thing up. Now up here we have the brush size right there. It's set at 59 pixels, hardness of 100, spacing 25%. I'll leave all of these at their defaults. And the two options here allow you to add in the refined edge here or to restore back to the original edge. So this is either a brushing it in or erasing it out, those two options right there. Okay, I'll start just right here, and I'm going to be putting it so that I'm overlapping the edge of the girl here and the layer mask right in there. And just kind of paint along. This may need some adjustments on the layer mask afterwards. That's fine. That usually happens. And you can even come in, do it a couple of times. Sometimes it gives you a little bit better edge if you do that. Yeah, I'm not worrying about that. And let's continue to go along the edge of the image here and do our basic mask this way, and then clean the mask up at a secondary step. A little bit up in here is going to need some adjustments in there. A little bit up there will need some adjustments, as you can see. And this should help a lot on the fur right down through here. With fur, you may need to do a couple of passes at it. Going to start out further like that and then come in a little bit. That usually works. Now this tool is never perfect, so you will have to come back in and modify and adjust the mask a little bit after we've done this. But that's pretty good. That's a pretty good mask. Real nice in here, a little messy down there, but we'll fix that up just fine. Okay, so I think it looks pretty good. I think we're okay. So I'm going to go ahead and output this to a layer mask. Choose OK. It's going to go ahead and make that adjustment, and there's the layer mask right there. You can see we have some problems up here and a little bit of problems right around the edge in here and down around here. So you need to do a little bit of cleanup on this mask. Looking okay back in there. Mostly up around in here, come in the front of the face, maybe a little bit right in there. But that's pretty easy to do. And this little bit right back down here and down there. Now, the way the layer mask works is that the white is what is showing from your original picture and the black is what's being hidden. So to get rid of this stuff, we need to paint more black onto the layer mask. Now look for that outline. If you don't see that, if you see the outline like that, just click back over on the layer mask to see the outline around the layer mask. Alright, let's zoom in a little bit here, and let's just clean up some of this stuff on the layer mask. So I want black, fairly small brush. As you can see, it's a soft edge, 25. I can go up a little bit on this. It's pretty small. Let's set the hardness at 50%. And let's bring this up to maybe a 36 or a 38. 38 is pretty good. And then again, just painting black onto the layer mask like that, and that gets rid of that little bit. I'll lose a little bit of that fur there, that's okay. And then just carefully come in here along this edge and clean that edge up right in there. There we are. Okay, that looks good. We're okay along the back here, maybe a little touch here and there, a couple little funny things showing in there. That's fine, that's fixed. And we'll need to come in here against the edge of the hat. I'm not going to go clear up against the edge, but almost to the edge. Just a few little hairs, little fuzzy things sticking out there. If I leave some of that in, it actually will improve the look. Just come right up against that edge. Now it's a little funky inside here. So this I need to have it set at white, so I'll set this to white. And let's just come in and get that edge. There we go, that looks better. And we're okay down this edge. So with the white I am showing more of the image, and with the black I am hiding it from that layer mask. So just kind of working back and forth on the two sides and making sure that we catch everything. Like her nose right there is just a little bit off, so let's bring her nose back in. Just really careful coming in and cleaning up that edge. Now let's come back on this again with black on the outside, just right up next to the hat. A little bit of that kind of fuzzy stuff in there is fine. I'll leave some of that in there. And just continue to work around, just clean up the mask a little bit. And again, this is standard if you're using this tool, that you may need to do a little bit of cleanup on the edges. So don't worry about that if that's the case. That's to be expected. And just be very careful. You can zoom in further if you want to be even more careful with it. Just zoom in real tight and use a small brush and just very careful, and you can get this absolutely perfect. Now if it's really critical that you have the layer mask be absolutely positively perfect, then do your layer mask using the pen tool instead. It takes longer, but you can then make your mask absolutely positively perfect. I have a video on how to do that, and I'll put the link for that video in the description if you want to go ahead and take a look at that technique for making your layer mask. But for this one, this works out pretty well. So there we go. Looks like we're all cleaned up now pretty fast, and all the edges look good. Let's now take a look at this fur back here. Now what I want to have is fur up along here. I need to have some kind of fur edge up along there as well. So I'm going to be doing this in 2 stages, and I'll put this above this layer. So put a new layer in, new layer button, there we are. Go over here to our clone stamp tool, which is right there. Kind of a small brush. Let me bring that brush size up a little bit on this. That's pretty good brush size right there. And 0 hardness, that's fine. I like a softer brush when I'm clone stamping. I'm just going to take some of this middle stuff here and bring it up along that edge right there. So Alt-click. Let me make sure I'm on my picture. Here we go. Alt-click up to our new layer, and then let's just bring some of that up. It'll take a couple of passes on this to get it really clean. Down to this layer again, and I'll click right there just for some variety's sake, but right up against the edge of that white in there. And then back to this layer again, and I just want to fill in some of this dark area here. Make it a little more even tone. Okay, there we go. Looks pretty good. It's a little bit weird, but we'll take care of that in our next step, which is another layer up here. Now what I can't easily do is copy this fur here and stick up here. You can try a little bit of that if you want to. It's tricky though. If I take this, let's grab that, Alt-click, come here to our fur layer, and I can put a little bit of this up here. But again, it's a little bit tricky this way. We don't have that layer mask in here helping us, and you can get in some issues with that. So I have a different technique for fixing the fur up here along the top side. Before we get to there, I'm just going to fix this a bit of white right down there. I don't like that either. So let's come back down to our original picture, I'm going to click right in here and back to our little clone stamp. There's a little bit right there. Just kind of hide that bit of white. I think that looks better. Before we go any further, I'm just going to rename these two layers. This layer is the clone stamp layer, and this layer is going to be a grass brush layer. We'll actually use the grass brush to put in some new fur right in there. To do this trick, we'll start off by moving over to the brushes right there, and then come down to our colors, foreground, background, of course. Click on the foreground color. Let's just choose one of the darker browns in here. Something down in here somewhere is pretty good. Just something in the dark range. Choose OK. Let's go over here to the background color and choose one of the lighter browns. So here's some place. There's a couple of browns like that. Let's now go to our brushes, and I have mine set at the basic brushes at this point. Let's reset the brushes to the defaults. So let's go ahead and do reset brushes. Choose OK. There we are. There's the basic brush set. Now if I scroll down towards the bottom of this brush set, you'll see right over here we have single grass and kind of a 3-blade grass thing here. 134 pixels. Click on that one. There's our little grass brush. Let's collapse that. Now let's check the settings for this brush. Go up to Window, come down to Brush, or hit the F5 key. Here's our settings. Now on the shape dynamics, we have size jitter set at 100%, angle jitter in here 10%, roundness jitter 37. These are the settings I've used in the past. I'm going to change the size jitter down to about 50%. There we are. I'll leave those the same. Angle jitter about 10 is pretty good. Notice if I increase the angle jitter, you get more of a spread like that. I want just a little bit, just a bit. So 10 is pretty good on that. The roundness jitter kind of changes the shape. Anywhere in the mid-30s is pretty good for this. Okay, scattering. I have mine set at 33 in here. Again, scattering, you get more of that. I don't want it to go too far out, so just kind of close together. Maybe the low 30s in there's pretty good. Count at 2. Count you at 100%. That's all fine. Color dynamics, foreground, background, jitter. That's shifting between your foreground and your background color. I'm going to set this one also at 50% for right now. Hue jitter, I'll leave that the same. And everything else I'll leave as is. Smoothing is on. There we go. So shape dynamics, scattering, color dynamics, and then leave transfer and smoothing at their default settings, and everything's good. All we're really doing here is just changing the shape dynamics, size jitter to 50%, angle to 10%, and on scattering 31%, and color dynamics 50%. That's pretty much it. Okay, now with this new brush on our grass brush layer, we have our foreground, background colors. So I can now come in here and actually just kind of tap in here a little bit, just right along that edge. Don't worry about the stuff down here. All I'm really caring about is the stuff sticking up. This is just kind of like some background colors up in there. Just kind of some random stuff. Okay, now we'll leave the foreground as is. I'll change the background here to white. Go up like that, so it's to white. Let's now bring back our brush settings. Again, F5 key as well. Color dynamics, bring the hue jitter down to about 10. So we bring that one way down. And then same thing. A little more in there like that. And then let's reverse our colors. And a few more just across the top here. Again, all I care about is what's showing up there. The stuff down below doesn't matter. That's pretty good. Okay, that takes care of the top part of the fur. Now I want to blend this back a little bit. So we'll grab the eraser tool, and pretty good size eraser. That looks pretty good already. 73% on that. This is full soft. 100% or 0% rather on the hardness, full soft. And just kind of come in here and just erase out that edge. And then back down to the original image. Back to our clone stamp tool. This time we're going to grab something over here. right in this area. Now for this I want a bigger brush. I'm going to need to change our brush up here. Let's go to a full soft brush, and maybe 90 is pretty good in there somewhere. Okay, hold the Alt key down, click right in the middle here, click up to our grass brush, and then just paint some of this in right in there. Just kind of fill in that dark background area, and that's really all you need to do. And there we go. So there's our new fur added in above here. Our nice little fur up there, and coming into a nice mesh down below. Now as we back out on this, you'll see how this blends in beautifully. There it is. You wouldn't even notice that. So there's our little grass brush technique to help rebuild and build in some new fur. Okay, so far so good. Just two little steps left on this. I want to put in an orange glow along this edge in here, and we need to color balance everything. Now again, she's very, very cool compared to our background. The background is a bit cooler than I want as well. So let's just do that first. I'm going to warm things up in here. Let's come down to the girl layer right there, and we'll put a photo filter above this one. So go up to layer and come down to new adjustment layer and photo filter, and leave this unchecked, and let's do a warming 85. There it is, our warming 85 filter. It just kind of warms the whole picture up for us. The default setting here is 25%. Let's just bring this up to 50. And by putting this warming filter on top of both the foreground and the background, it brings the colors together. So they really kind of match much more nicely down here. Just kind of brings everything together on that one. Now notice that it's not really helping us back here. This is now cool compared to everything else being warm. So we actually need to have this filter above those two layers as well. So just grab this, drag it up. There we go, and that just drops right back in, and everything now matches nicely. All we have left to do then is just to give us our nice warm edge along here. Let's put a new layer in. There we go. Click on our foreground color, and then using the eyedropper, let's choose some of this warmth right around the sun. Maybe right around in here somewhere. So it's kind of a nice warm orange. I'm actually grabbing that right from the sun. And I think a little more color on that's okay. Somewhere around here, again, just outside of the sun, right around in here somewhere, get kind of a nice orange that matches that glow. There we go. Okay, let's go over here to our brush, and we'll change back to a standard brush. I'll just grab that 73 soft edge right there, and that's that size. You bring that up to about 100. That's pretty good. And I'm just going to come right down along the edge like that. Just right in there along that edge. Looks really bad right now. We'll clean that up. Don't worry about that. Everything else we can ignore. I really just want just this part of this edge. Let's now grab the layer mask from down here. Hold the Alt key down. Drag that up to this layer. That copies the layer mask and cleans that edge off. Let's now blend this into our picture using our blend modes, and come down to overlay, and that just blends that in just like that. So it's kind of a nice light. Now it's a little bit hard, kind of harsh, as you can see here. Part of it's because it's spilling too far into her face. So come back onto the layer mask. Now you want black hides. Back to our brush. There's our brush setting. I'm going to change the opacity here down to about halfway, down to about 50%. I'll just type that in, 50%. And then it's going to come in and just cut back in a little bit like this, so it's not showing too much into the face, and it's just along that edge. So we just kind of limit that right against that edge. Be a little more down here, that's fine. So there we go, just kind of a nice little highlight happening in along that edge in there. So there we go. That is how to take this picture of a girl from one picture and drop her into this other image. Now, the last thing you may want to do is just kind of adjust your values in here. If you're not quite happy with your values, that's easy to do. I always like doing this. Just come on to the girls layer down here, and let's put in an adjustment layer in here. So layer, new adjustment layer, and levels. This time let's clip this using previous layer to create clipping mask. Clip that right onto that layer. And then here we can kind of fine tune our values. Now right here, her top here, her sweater or jacket, is kind of washed out compared to the blacks back in there. So I'm going to bring the blacks up a little bit. So those are about the same value as those background. Don't go too far or you begin to lose some of the detail in here. So it's kind of a delicate little bit, just a little bit darker in there. Kind of fills that in just a touch. And then we can adjust the value in here. I'm going to pull it down just a little bit below 1 on that image. That just helps to kind of bring the values in to match our picture a little bit better. Choose OK, and there we go. So there's how to change the background from a kind of snowscape, mountainscape into this nice cold, icy Arctic sea effect, and of course some fun stuff like fixing that fur in there as well. So there you go. Okay, again, if you enjoy this video, make sure that you take a look at my full training. You'll find the links for that in the description. Thank you for watching my video. I hope you found it useful. If you like this video, click on the like button below to let others know. You can click the subscribe button so you don't miss any of my videos in the future. I'm frequently uploading new training videos. Don't forget to check out my website at howtogurus.com.